time to chat with us at the Christian Beat today about your upcoming music that's releasing tomorrow.
Thank you.
I want to start with the congratulations, because I'm sure you're excited about that. But I'm curious when the first thought of this project came to you.
The first thought of this project came to me when my wife, who has kind of had all the first thoughts of the last few projects we've done, woke up at about 5 a.m. and she's like, "I got an idea. We were planning on doing a retreat with our team." And she said, let's make it like a full-on camp, like a summer camp. So I was like, I kind of learned to just go with it with her. Because at the time, I mean, I'm half asleep and I didn't understand the idea. But I'm so glad I went with it because I have to say, I think it's the best thing we've ever done in our lives. Not just musically, but just what was captured with the unity and the connectedness of it all was something we'll never forget.
Oh, I'm sure. And I imagine that that's kind of where some of the inspiration for the cover art came as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm curious, since you mentioned unity, how that kind of inspired the title of the project, Worship Anywhere, also, seems pretty inclusive as well.
Yeah, so Worship Anywhere actually was thing I started sort of hashtagging about 4 years ago, and it all kind of happened because I found myself, kind of experiencing a halftime in my life, so to speak, and I went through a divorce and just kind of had to rebuild some things in my life. And during that time, there were a lot of places that I would have normally gone that were like, yeah, we just don't want you here for the time being. So I found myself doing worship events in some of the most unlikely places. And I realized that it wasn't necessary to be in a church building, no disrespect to the church building, but it wasn't necessary to be in a church building in order to have an experience with God. And this was 2 years prior to the pandemic and quarantine. So once that hit, it became like something that, I don't know, I want to say we were a little bit ahead of the curve on, in the sense of just like showing up at a coffee shop or showing up at a club or showing up at an underground bar or something and going, hey, we're going to pop up and do worship. And all these people would come in, and what I found was it was a lot of people showing up that did not feel comfortable in church, which is a sad commentary for where we are as a church. And I just, it sort of stuck. And the fact that we ended up out in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York to record this thing, Worship Anywhere, felt appropriate.
For sure. I'm curious if you can pick out, thinking on the tracks, if there's a track or even a specific lyric on one of the tracks that you think the world most needs to hear in this state.
I feel like that's an easy one for me. There's a song that is already really making some significant connection called Wrong About You. And it's the chorus. It's just, I'm so glad I was wrong about you because now I know the truth. So the idea is, and again, I want to preface this by saying I love the local church, and I'm grateful for the upbringing that I had, and grateful that my parents and my pastors did the best they could with what they had. But there are a lot of things in doing that, even with a good heart, that I learned about God that were completely not who he is, not his nature at all. And so to be able to say and sing along on an up-tempo song, I'm so glad I was wrong about you, it evokes this emotion that, frankly, I wasn't expecting. But live, we've done it several times now, and every time there's this lump in my throat, just thanking God, and I'm watching lights come on, so to speak, in people's eyes when they're singing along with this, and so it's that's been really powerful. But I think it's the lyric to that song.
For sure. I'm curious if there are any personal highlights for you that stand out from the whole creation process of this collection, since it was a little bit different than your normal, if you will.
Yeah, I would have to say the developing of the opening song, which is called the New Breed Anthem, because we basically, we had to tread lightly between being clever and being corny. And I feel like we found the nexus of it. But essentially, we took a bunch of our songs over the last 20 plus years as a group and took lyrics from each song, from different songs rather, and created this new song called the New Breed Anthem, and even sampled one of our old songs into the song. And it sort of became like the camp theme song, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I personally had a lot of fun helping to craft that and to try and sing it.
For sure. I mean, you get to look back and everything as well, so that's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. A little bit of a retrospective.
I'm sure. Also, I know that you have a few collabs on this project, and I'm just curious, how some of these came to be and how you think that they help to enhance the collection of tracks.
I collabed with Doe,
mm-hmm.
who I love, who's done the last few projects we've done together, and I've replayed the favor for her records. And then Joel Barnes from Maverick City, who's just become I don't know, just really, really special to us. Those were kind of the main ones. Anna Sailors, who's just an amazing vocalist, tremendous human being. Sings on, I think, one of my favorite songs on the record, which is called Blessing and Honor. But how did they come about? I'd have to say they all came about very organically, because I just said, hey, we're going to do this thing. Would you guys want to come? And they're like, yeah. It wasn't, I've got this song for you and you have to sing it, and, let's talk to your people and have your people talk to mine. It was none of that. It was, hey, we're doing this thing in New York. You want to come? And they're like, we'll be there. And so I think the organic nature of it and sort of the familial approach to how we do things and how we've done things the last 2.5 decades is just better for me anyway. It's just because I feel like when it comes to creativity, you want to be as uncomplicated as possible. And then when it comes to just the music of it, you want it to be as, how do I say this while I'm doing an interview, but you want to do it as uncommercially driven as possible. Like, it ought to just be spirit driven and moment driven and atmosphere, oriented, as opposed to, if we do this song with this person, then we can do this. You know what I mean?
For sure.
I just stopped thinking in those terms a long time ago and just said, I want whatever's best for the moment, whatever's best for the project. And, we had some hits and some misses in trying to figure that out. But once we did figure it out, I was very, very happy with the result.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm curious, you mentioned, 2.5 decades or so that you've been, doing these things. I'm curious how you kind of look to put the vision and your goal for this project of the impact and the success for it compared to some of your other projects. Like, what stands out for you with what you hope to impact with this project?
Sure. I feel this one was definitely the most intentional project I've probably done in 15 years. And what I mean by that is, the last time I remember doing something kind of this specific and this thought through would have been the first time we did the Deeper conference and the record that came out of that. That would have been 2007. Like this is a project that has a lot to it. At that time, I was transitioning a lot in my team, bringing in kind of a younger crew of people. And here 15 years later, I'm kind of doing the same thing. So, we had our New Breed team, the Israel and New Breed team, and then I invited probably 15 young, up-and-coming, worship leaders and artists to just hang out with us and to just kind of see if we had synergy there. And thankfully, we did and we do. So I'm in the process of kind of developing another layer as we speak to what New Breed is and New Breed worship.
That's awesome. I know we're getting close to time, so I have one final question for you.
Okay.
But what are you most expectant for in the remainder of this year and looking into 2023? That's a heavy one. I mean, what I'm looking forward to
in finishing this year out and going forward is just reattaching some of the areas within the church and with worship that I feel like have gotten frayed and unattached just by some of the schisms and the divisions and all of those things that we've kind of experienced in church as of late, whether it's politics spilling into, the church experience or whatever it's been. There's been a lot of these sort of, the lines used to be pretty blurry, and I feel like they've become very, very bold again. Just very like, this is the line, and I want to see that blurred a little bit more again. Just I've hung my hat and sort of flown my flag the last, like we said, 2.5 decades of ministry on bringing about unity and diversity and, making sure that Sunday morning is not the most segregated day of the week.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Again, Israel, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to chat with us this morning, and congratulations again on Worship Anywhere.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Nice talking to you. Great questions.